Welcome to a two-part segment of what it's like to live with epilepsy. I have decided to do this video to educate some of you on what life is like with epilepsy, and this will be a two-part segment, so if you would like to continue, you can tune in next Wednesday at 8 a.m. when I will be having an EEG, which stands for an electroencephalogram. Let's get started. I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was 18 months old. I have lived with it ever since. I suffer from 3 types of seizures, from temporal lobe to partial complex to a rare form of epilepsy called abnormal absentee, which means it's a form of second generalized seizures, which means it now affects not just one part of my brain, but both sides of my brain. And I'm doing this because I received a message from someone this morning telling me that epilepsy is no big deal. Well, since you got me started, here we go. As an individual who lives with disability, who is an Afro-latinx, first-generation American-born, you can imagine what discrimination we go through. Life with epilepsy is not easy. It affects all aspects of your life, including your employment, your education, and your personal life, and there's many different forms. So, for those of you that don't know, and who assume that epilepsy is just convulsing and shaking, no. There are over 27 different types of seizures and syndromes that make up the epilepsy spectrum. And with that, they range from visible to invisible. And from that, I bet you didn't know that, here's a fun fact for you, 1 in 26 individuals will develop epilepsy at some point in your life. It is not something you're born with, and it does not discriminate. You can be of any age, any race, any ethnicity, any background, and it can happen to you. 1 in 10 will experience a seizure at some point in their life. And also another fun fact, epilepsy can kill. I bet that's something else some of you didn't know. Is that epilepsy, it's called a SUDEP seizure, which is sudden unexpected death in epilepsy. And I bet you also didn't know that there are over 3 million people in the US living with epilepsy. And that over 100,550 people are diagnosed every day. So, with that being said, here we go on what it's like to walk in my shoes with having epilepsy. As I said before, it affects both your personal, employment, and your education. And here's how it affects your employment life. Some of you have the luxury of not having to carry a lovely letter like this to your employment office or to your job when you have to go and do a urinal test because, it shows up in your urine test. Some of you also don't have to take time off of work because you're being hospitalized anywhere from a day to a few hours to 72 hours to 5 days. I've had all of them that I've mentioned before. So you don't have to take time off. You don't have to worry about going back to work, getting fired, being considered a liability or at risk to your employment office, or being told that you're a danger to yourself and the other clients. That is something that you don't have to worry about. You also don't have to worry about transportation. Yes, with having epilepsy. Also fun fact, depending on what state you live in, you have to be seizure-free from 3 to 6 months in order to be eligible to drive. And if you have been eligible to drive, then you have to wait again 3 to 6 months, depending on your state, to be able to drive again. So, that being said, for those of you that have jobs that require a lot of travel, guess what? You would have been fired if you were to be the 1 in 10 that was to experience a seizure. And you would also be one of the 1 in 26 who have epilepsy that also risk getting fired and losing their job. As well as equal and opportunity employment, they also now ask you they are not considered scheduling aid jobs. They also ask on their employment form if you have or had disability. And at the end of your resume, you also have this lovely little description. I bet some of you don't even read the fine print. So with that fine print, it says, disclaimer, that to the best of your knowledge, all the information that you have proven is true to the best of your knowledge. And then it says, also note, any information that is found to be false are grounds for immediate dismissal or termination post-hire. So that being said, I'm so happy that some of you don't have to worry about that. Now, where it comes to your education, how it affects you, I've had professors both in higher ed and in secondary ed discriminate against me for having epilepsy because of the lack of knowledge, the lack of education, the lack of people speaking up of what it's like to live with disability, regardless of any type of what it is. And they've ranged from the time that I was in the hospital because I was seizure-free for 2 years and then had a spurt of seizures. So my neurologist admitted me. I had to go to the dean of students to get it medically absence excused because, it doesn't fall under the absence excuse policy. That being said, I received an email from a professor in college stating that he had just gotten the letter from the dean of students, and it said, well, I didn't know you were sick. You didn't look sick in class. Okay, let me ask you all this. What is a person with epilepsy supposed to look like? Because clearly I look perfectly normal to you, so what am I supposed to look like? Good question. I've also had people question my merit, question my character, question my ability to even do the work. And I quote a professor who also in a department who accused me of plagiarism not once, but twice, that due to my intellectual ability, I do not have the ability to complete said coursework at this level. Lady, it was a 200 level course. I was doing 300 and 400 level work as a freshman. So take several seats and exit to the left. Your ignorance is not welcome. Now to where it affects your personal life. Here's how it'll affect your personal life. Try waking up every day and wondering, is today the day that I'm going to have an epileptic storm? And to educate you on what an epileptic storm is where you will have anywhere from 10 to plus 20 seizures a day. There are even some people that have over 100 seizures a day. And it takes a toll on your body that it takes after an epileptic storm. Personally, it takes me 3 days to recover. 3. And something that also with living with epilepsy, both that I've had to endure in college as well as in employment, is you have to wear this lovely little ID tag that says you have epilepsy. Because you go out with your friends and you have a seizure, you're mistaken for somebody who's disoriented, because that is one of the effects of having a seizure is you become disoriented. And you get mistaken for somebody who has been drinking too much, an intoxicated person, and can get charged. And also there are people who have died in police custody due to mistaken of the fact that they were under the influence when really they were having a seizure. So I have to take extra precautions so I'm not mistaken for that of, oh, I'm resisting arrest, or I'm disoriented and I'm under the influence. No, I have to wear this so I stay alive. And people don't mistake me for someone who's doing drugs or who's under the influence. So that being said, let's move on. Try waking up every day wondering if this is the day that I'm going to have an epileptic storm. If this is the day that I have a blackout seizure, I fall and I hit my head on the concrete. Is this the day that I'm going to die as a result of having too many seizures or blacking out? None of you have to worry about that. These are the daily things that I wake up having to live with and having to deal with and wondering if I'm going to die today. And you may think that's a little bit overdramatic, but guess what? I don't blame you for thinking it's overdramatic, because you don't live one day in my shoes. You do not have to worry about how epilepsy or having a disability is going to affect your life. And to the people, and also wondering if you will find somebody that is ever going to love you and want to spend the rest of their life with you and to make a family with you, all because you have epilepsy. And it is such a burden to them. Well, you know what? I'm sorry that you feel it's a burden to you. Wonder how I feel. I'm the one that has to live with it. So try waking up and having those daily fears. It takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on your mental health, and it's depressing. And for those of you that don't understand or think that, oh, people with disabilities can't accomplish anything, guess what? I didn't achieve a BS in addiction studies or a BA in psychology by being stupid. And for those of you who are about to get into a whole marijuana issue with me, guess what? Here are the treatments for epilepsy. There's a thing called this VNS. There is a thing called brain removal surgery. And yes, there are some people that use cannabis oil. And so no, you can't just smoke a regular joint and think, oh, it's going to cure your epilepsy. No, there's a specific type of plant. It's called a cannabis sativa plant, which has only plant that has been approved, marijuana plant that has been approved for medical research and by the FDA. So no, you can't just smoke a regular joint and your epilepsy is going to be gone. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. So again, have several seats and exit left because your ignorance, I don't have time for it anymore. So, continuing on. Before you go and assume that people with disabilities are retarded or don't have the ability to accomplish anything, please educate yourself. And do not judge a parent who decided to keep their child even if they had a disability. Because I was raised by a single parent. My mother, throughout my entire life, reminded me that you are an individual with disability. Your epilepsy does not define you. And epilepsy is not the only terminal illness. And some of you who are about to say, well, you're a vessel of God, God has a plan for you, leave that at the door, because I'm not in the mood for it right now. Because if I had a choice over this life, this would not be the life I would choose. And this would also be the life that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And trust me, I have quite a list of those. So, to move on. There are parents who have children with epilepsy. There are parents who have children with muscular dystrophy. There are people who have children with terminal cancer. And I bet you wouldn't say, oh, well, your child's a vessel of God. Oh, well, God has a plan for you. Or any of those ignorant comments that don't freaking help. They make it a lot worse because even our own parents who deal with this wouldn't choose the life that we have to live for us. It pains our parents to watch your child seize, to watch your child suffer, to worry about, is this the day that I'm going to lose my child or that my child is going to get affected by the result of their having a disability? And no, to answer some of your questions, no, you do not put anything in a person's mouth. You roll them over on their side when they're having a seizure because you have this lovely little thing called a gag reflex, which I don't have to get into an inappropriate joke to explain that. But guess what? You put anything in your mouth, you block their airway, you risk suffocating them, and guess what? Then their death is on your hands. So, that being said, to continue, I appreciate and I am grateful for the friends that I have who, after college, still want to hang out with me, who don't see me as a burden, who don't see me as, oh, well, you're going to be a killjoy. I am so grateful that I have those people in my life. And to give credit to them, I give credit to Serena Adams, to Natasha Hugh. I give credit to Kayla Himdall, to Alafia and Mariah Wright. I give credit to those people because they still want to hang out with me after college. They still want to be my friend, even regardless of me having epilepsy. Their ignorance is non-existent. So I also give credit to my mentors who have pushed me to become far more than what society expects me to be. And I give credit to those such as Beth Boyd, John Corco, who were my advisors in college. I also give credit to Dr. Monica Iverson, who actually had people with disabilities come in and talk to her class of what it is like to have a disability and what it's like to walk in someone's shoes versus, oh, what you just read out of a textbook. Sorry, not all of us are defined what you learn about in medical school and what's in your textbooks. Here, that's the sad reality. So make sure that you ask for your money or you get what you're paying for. And so to continue on, I also give credit to Rosa Clemente, to Dr. Eddie Moore, because they spread the knowledge of what it's like to be a minority, to what it's like to walk in a person's shoes, and to Dr. Monell, who is a social justice, who is a justice professor at the Winston-Salem State University. I give him kudos because he's teaching everybody of what it's like, not just to walk in minorities' shoes or a person of color's shoes or even anybody who falls under a minority. It's the entire spectrum. So I give him kudos of spreading the knowledge and for being encouraging, and all my mentors for being encouraging. And a huge shout out to Molly Smelsler, who is the behavioral counselor that I worked under at the Epilepsy Foundation when I was a camp counselor there. And for some of you who also don't know, you can be discriminated for any reason. Not just disability, not just as a person of color. It can be something so small and minute. And that's also what falls under employment, is where you can get fired when you live in a right to hire, right to fire state, which is every state in the United States besides Montana, where they can fire you without telling you any reason. And guess what? It's happened to me twice. Only one employer had the balls to tell me that it was as a result of my epilepsy being an inconvenience to them and that I required accommodations. Again, I am so sorry that I am such a burden to you, when you have no idea what it's like to walk a day in my shoes. And so to further understand what goes on, please educate yourself. Educate yourself. Go to the Epilepsy Foundation, to their website, and inform yourself on what is epilepsy, what it's like to have epilepsy, the different types of seizures, so that way you can save someone's life. You can be an ally to a person with epilepsy. You can make a difference in someone's life. Please educate yourself. That's all I ask of you, because dealing with everyday ignorance gets exhausting. And for those of you because it gets annoying seeing some of your posts about, oh, well, my workers are so petty. Oh, I hate my job. Oh, I hate this. Oh, I hate that. You know what? Take several receipts because you think your life is bad. Imagine having one seizure and, oh, gee, you lose your job, you lose transportation. Again, things that I've already mentioned. And you think it's so horrible. You know what? Again, have several seats. Or you grouch about your wage. Like $29,000 or even $50,000 is such a bad thing. You know what? Again, shut your mouth. Because when I was receiving Social Security disability, everyone's disability check is different. So with that in place, remember that the annual income is below the poverty level. The last year that I received Social Security disability, it was just a little bit, just a tad bit over $8,000. I would love to see you live off of that and then come to me and bitch about your $29,000 that you make, or $34,000 that you make, or even your $50,000 that you make, when trying to survive off of just a little bit over $8,000 a year, and you think you have it bad. Take several seats. So, I hope you all tune in to my next segment of what it's like to live behind closed doors in the life of individuals with epilepsy when I have my EEG, because some of you will be in for a real shock of what it's like. And to my message for society, who I'm sure that I pissed in a few people's Cheerios this morning, speaking out about it, my message to society is screw your status quo, your hypocrisy, saying that you'll protect us, and yet you don't. Your audacity to tell us how we live and how we love is wrong. And to my allies, you need to stand up, let a fire up, fight for your right to live and how you want to live. Raise your voices, sing a battle song. It's a revolution. Get your rebel on. I know I have. I hope you do too. Anyway, have a blessed day.